Okay, so this is yet another tutorial on a few different things. This one we're going to go over some different line work settings, so different types of line work, as well as components. So this will be over those two things. I'm going to move these out of the way just so that they don't kind of get in my way here. Okay, so starting with line work, under the architecture tab, basically this is all of your 3D stuff. So anything that might happen to be modeled in 3 dimensions is usually found here. There are some exceptions, but this is usually the stuff that you'll see in 3D. And you'll see over here under model, this model line. Model lines do show up in 3 dimensions. So if you want to sketch something out and you want to be able to see it in your 3D view and every other view, this is the line that you would choose. You get your little sketch menu up here with all of your different tools. You can choose whether to chain it or not. Usually you do. It's not very often that you want to draw a single line and then it just ends. Usually you're drawing a sequence, and it's nice to have that checked. And then you can also have an offset. So if I'm drawing, let's say I have a wall or something here, and I want to draw a line that's 6 inches off of that, I can say an offset of 6, and then just draw along that wall, and it'll shoot a line 6 inches off to the side there. Now, which direction I pull does impact which side that line is on. So as you can see right now, that it's drawing the line on the right side. But if I were to go the opposite direction, it's going to draw it on the other side. So just something to keep in mind as you're drawing stuff. If it's not on the right side, just go the other way. So under your model lines, you also have this drop down here that shows you a bunch of different kind of preset line types. So these are usually your typical stuff. You have thin lines, medium, wide. Those are just defaults, so different line weights and things like that. So if I kind of zoom in here and draw a thin line, and then I draw a medium, and then a wide line, I can kind of see how graphically those are going to read a little differently. So as you're sketching stuff, figure out what you want. What you're sketching, is that a prominent feature or is it not? So then you can set kind of an appropriate line weight to it. Another way to go about doing line weights with lines is, let's say I draw this line and I want something that's even heavier than a wide line. So maybe this isn't quite heavy enough. I really want to punch it up. If I select this line, right click, and hit Override Graphics in View. Now this is only going to change the view of what this line looks like in this view, not in 3D, not in your elevations, not anywhere else. So it would be kind of a pain to have to go through and figure out what all the other views are and change the line weight there. But if I say by element, it brings up this menu here. I can halftone it. So I could make this kind of grayed out. If you want to kind of suppress it even more, I can change the color. It's not very often you're printing plans and stuff like that in color, but if you want to do that, you could highlight something in red or something like that. I can also change the pattern to something that isn't in this pull down already. If you have one instance where you want a loose dash or something even more confined, you can come in here and choose that. But then you can also go to weight, and basically if I go through, I can say, okay, what's a 3? A 3 looks like it's about the same as a medium, so let's go to a 6. So a 6 looks like it's a little bit thicker than a wide, and if you come all the way down to like a 12, you're starting to get really thick in here. But there's nothing preset, I don't think, beyond 12. I could be wrong on that, but I think everything beyond a 12 is usually not set yet. But they do give you the option to set stuff Which, if you have anything that you want, if you want to create a line type, if you're using a thicker line weight and you're using it a lot, along with a style that that isn't a preset, let me know, and I'll show you how to create that line type so that it pops up in this menu here. It's not something that I'm going to go over right now. It may be something we get into a little bit later on. But so for the most part, there's model lines, and if I go to my 3D view, those show up. So these can be good for things like let's show, if we've got a wall here and I go to an elevation view, I can sketch on the wall, and maybe I want to show, you know, some sort of material change, or, you know, even if it's still brick, I want to show that little bit there. You can sketch some lines in. Usually these are good for things like a stucco finish or like a Revit type thing, where you want to show some sort of little groove or detail to show some sort of little, you know, separation between maybe one stucco panel and another stucco panel. And you don't want to model, you know, a reveal in everywhere. You can just sketch some lines in, and it pretty much gives you the same effect that you're looking for. So that's model lines. There are a couple of different other types of line. So if I go back to my floor plan view and go to annotate, I have this detail line. So as you can see, when I hover over it, it says creates view specific lines. So detail lines are visible only in views in which they are drawn. So same thing as model lines, you get the same options and everything, but if I draw, anything I draw in this view is only visible in this view. If I go to my 3D view, it's not going to show up. So if you want to sketch little things into your floor plan that maybe you don't want to see in your elevations or your 3D view, this is a good tool. These can also be really useful to kind of lay some stuff out real quickly rather than modeling everything in 3D. Sometimes it's nice to just be able to say, okay, you know, maybe it's a countertop or something like that, where you're just laying some stuff out, and you lay out a countertop along a wall, and you kind of get an overall kitchen layout going just via line work first to see if it's going to work out. Once it does, then you can kind of come back in and rough in your 3D stuff. But for the most part, I'll use detail lines as little sketching elements for, you know, just getting ideas down kind of quick. But I'll also use them as like reference lines for maybe I want to mirror something, or I want to ensure that everything is mirrored around a certain point. I can draw a line in that's not going to show up in other views, but then as I'm modeling stuff, I've always got that kind of frame of reference that I can come back to, and then I can always delete that at the end, and it's not impacting anything else in terms of the model. So that's your detail line. There are also some instances of symbolic lines. Let's see. It's not very often that you will use them, and I am actually blanking on where exactly those lie. They may only occur actually in your family editor, now that I think about it. So that's something that that there's another type of line that you may see, but we'll get into those a little bit later. Those occur when you're creating custom families and things like that for reference planes. So in terms of line work, that's pretty much it. You basically have your two types. Do you want it to show in 3D? Do you not want it to show in 3D? Depending on what you want, use a detail line for not, model line for yes. Okay, so now getting into components. So if you click on component here, there's also a drop down for model in place. We are going to do an entire separate tutorial just on model in place, maybe 2 of them, because this is a really nice tool. It's also something that'll get us into the swing of building things in families. So that is something that we'll address entirely on its own. But placing component, these are all of your, your cabinets, your furniture, your lighting, all the little knick-knack kind of stuff. So you have this little pull down. Right now this is a desk, but it also has parking spaces and trees and all these other little preset things in here. I will say the trees in Revit tend to be okay. They're not fantastic. They tend to be a little blurry. So, use them at your own risk, I guess. They can be okay for, backgrounds and things like that. But if I was going to have trees and stuff right prominent in the front, in the foreground, and up against my building, I think I would tend to Photoshop those in a little bit later, which we'll get into that a little bit later on in the semester and how you go about doing stuff like that. But if there's something that you want that's not here, you can load family. And then up here under your Imperial Library are all of these different categories. So some of these are things that you might not ever use. Some of these are things you're going to use all the time. So everything from furniture, there's beds. So this is not a bad place to go if you're laying out a bedroom and you want to see how the size of a certain size bed lays out within your bedroom. Not a bad place to go to load a bed in, and then down here I can change to a king, queen, twin. So if I change to a king, I can see kind of how that's going to fit within everything. So those are your basic kind of component things. There are some other things, profiles. So if you're doing sweeps and things like that, you can load a different profile in, like what I was showing earlier with walls. You can also use these in the component model in place, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Lighting. If you go into the architectural, there's external, doesn't have a lot, so little post lights and things like that. But then also internal, you have your can lights, so that you typically see in houses. But that's your incandescent. But then you also have a bunch of different other options. So you have an under cabinet light for kitchens, desks, things like that, and then some larger lights. And then this studio light is basically just a point light. It will not show up in any 3D view or anything like that when you render. This Linework will show up in your elevations and things like that, so you'll need to hide that if you're creating elevations. But for the most part, this is really nice as a fill light. So if you have a certain area that might be a little dark and you want to brighten it up a little bit, throw one of these kind of close in the corner. You don't want to get too close, otherwise you're going to have a real bright splotch on your wall. But little things like that are nice to use. And we'll get into lighting and stuff like that a little bit later when we get into the rendering side of things. But other than that, you can kind of peruse here and see what all you want to load in. If there's something that you want that's not there, a good place to start is Revit City. So this is Revit City. Basically, you can create an account. It's entirely free. Started out of some couple people's basements, but it's grown to be absolutely enormous. So up here under, you can check the gallery images and see what everybody else is creating in terms of renderings and stuff like that. But then you can also go to forums. If you ever have a question, odds are somebody else has asked it, and you can search a little keyword and something will pop up. or if you can't find what you're looking for, shoot me an email, and I'll hopefully be able to answer it pretty quick. If not, we can always go into this Revit project management and post something and see if we can get somebody else to respond to it. But then the big thing is downloads. So you can sort by various things, but if I want to look for, say, a couch, I can type in couch, and I get a whole bunch of options of models that other people have made and uploaded, and they're all free to download and things like that. I will caution that some of these can look nice in the little picture, and then you get them into the model and the scale is way off, or you know, they're just not built real well. Not all of these are necessarily parametric, which means you can't necessarily change the dimensions of them. As we go through the semester, I'll teach you how to change, go into a family. So if you find a family that you basically like, but there's a couple things that maybe aren't there that you want to be there, you can kind of jump into the family and add those things for your own use. And if there's anything that you can't find, or you want to model yourself, I'll show you how to do that. I also have a basic a library full of stuff that I've created over the years. Some of them are better than others, depending on when I've made them. Hopefully the more recent stuff is a little bit better than the old stuff, but you never know. Depends on how quickly you need it and how quickly you make it. But so as you can see, some people put parametric within their thing, but this says parametric materials, which means you can change the material. Does not mean you can change the dimensions of it. So this is a good place to start. There's also Augi, AUGI. That's a different website. I tend to go here first and then Augi second. There are also some other websites if you want to pay for some really nice models. Turbo Squid is not a bad place to pay for models. They tend to be pretty good from what I've seen. I don't usually pay for models. I have on 1 or 2 instances, just depending on how long it was going to take me to model something really complex and how much they were charging for it. So you got to weigh your options there, but for the most part, this is a good kind of free place to peruse and find almost anything that you want. So if you ever need any objects, go ahead and start there. Other than that, for components, that's pretty much it. As you build your own components, I would create a library of things. So I have on my external hard drive, I have Revit families, and so I have things broken down by appliances that I've made, beds, chairs and sofas. These are all various weird things that I've either downloaded that I think are a solid family. So I'll download kind of Kohler stuff for faucets and things, but then knickknacks and stuff like that I'll throw in. So everything from a cup of coffee to a big thing of flowers. But it's good to start building up your library of stuff, so that way in the future you haven't made a family that you want and then it's a model in place and you can't really load it in real easily. So as you start to build stuff, create yourself a little library, and that way you've always got all the stuff that you made. It might not be great as you go down the road, but it's still there and something that you can always use in a pinch. So I think that's about it.